Hello everyone, I am Tacet, and this week is the 5-year anniversary of Gems of War. What exactly we'll be getting for this, we don't currently know, but of course this Wednesday we can see that we already have the cosmetic pet coming in, but whatever else we won't know until it actually happens. Other than that, we're going to be going over the event objectives for the Lizard Wizard, in which the Kobra is added to the game. So let's get into that. So, this Kobra, it's useless. As far as its trade stones, that's not useless. It's yellow-blue, it's an epic, so you'll be able to get them for 200 glory each. Some things in early game that you might want to level it up with is Astral Spirit, Dryad, Night Coronet, and Moonsinger, which was the previous yellow-blue add to the game. And other than that, later into the game, you'd want to upgrade things like Cedric for its gold bonus, Princess Elspeth, Silent Sentinel, and Taloka. As far as this troop, it is pretty much useless, except for maybe this Thursday, where you might end up using it for the class event, just to be able to have a summon. But other than that, you're not really going to be using it. Just some damage to an enemy, boosted by poison at a really low boost ratio, and then gets to summon 1 to 2 Mr. Scale troops. This is pretty much never going to be useful unless you just really need to summon for whatever reason. Of course, you could use that to make sure you don't lose points on this Thursday for the class event, but aside from that, I don't really see any instance where this thing will ever be used. It also has completely useless traits, so nothing really relevant to see here. It's just going to be another dead content troop, but at least it has a decent arcane trait stone, so stock up on that if you don't already have a bunch of those. As far as other things we have this week, we have 10% to all Mr. Scales, as well as 10% to all Nagas, which is good, because there are 2 events this week that basically have double overlap in that regard. The class event this Thursday, and raids throughout the entire week. So at least we'll be able to use that 20% to help us out and be able to do those 2 game modes a little bit easier. Other than that, we do have 40 extra souls whenever we use the new Glory troop in PvP and Explore. This should completely be ignored, just because it is an extremely useless troop and you'd be better off just putting a soul farming option within its slot, and you'd end up getting more souls than you would simply using this in your team. So you can pretty much just end up ignoring that. As far as event keys this week, they are somewhat okay. Nothing really too special in here, but of course it is the Mist of Scales faction. So if we go and bring that up right over here. So basically everything here is available, with the only exception being the 4 faction troops, which are all the ones mentioned with Dark Pits. But other than that, every single one of these troops is within the drop table. As far as the most relevant one, I'd probably say is the Mythic of Reali. And the main reason for this, even though this is a rather underwhelming troop, it can be synergized with Scorpius, which is actually in Soulforge this week, to be able to go and instantly double kill very easily. You could double kill off of Scorpius whenever the enemy is poisoned, and Reali has the easiest poison in the entire game, being able to poison the entire enemy team with a single extra turn. So in that regard, she's okay. In pretty much every other context, she isn't really used much, maybe ever so occasionally in Guild War. Other than that, the only other pickup you might end up getting is Tapon, as it's pretty good in a Yagwe Queen of Tanya team, if you're somehow still missing the Tapon. Even though it's a lower rarity, you might still potentially be missing it. And other than that, Marilith is somewhat okay, mainly because it has a +1 link and it has Destroy. And ever since Explosions got nerfed about a year ago or so, Destroys have been pretty decent, just because they get full value, whereas Explodes only get half value. And now as magic gets increasingly higher over time, just Destroys are just going to get even better and better, especially when they do a specific amount like Reali, where it's based specifically on her magic. So the higher her magic, the more Destroys she'll get, and she gets the full mana for every single gem she destroys. And of course the skulls just do whatever damage, 1 for 1 or 5 for the Doom Skulls. Yeah, nothing really too special, mostly just an attempt possibly at a Reali and a Tapon if you don't already have it. And that's about the only 2 things I'd really say you would end up going for. And only in really select situations, like only go for a Reali if you, of course, have a Scorpius, and you need it if you're currently just using a Web Spinner for the option. Next up, we of course have raids. We'll be showing 2 teams for this one. We might as well just go do immediately. And this is the main team I'm going to be using. We will be showing a cheaper one in a little bit. Of course, all teams will be in the description below, as always. But we're going to be running Mang, the new troop of, I actually forgot his name already, Algoric the Slayer, followed by a Tapon and a Reali. So what we're going to be doing here is just Mang. It's pretty much just runs like any other event that we ever have. This ends up doing explosions based on how many poisons, and because Reali can poison off an extra turn, you can see we've already poisoned the entire team. So when we go cast this to go kill the raid boss, we're going to get 6 explosions onto the board, which obviously gives us a pretty substantial amount of mana accumulation. Then we basically just wait until we get another Tapon, keep skill poking. You might even want to set to Enrage, just so you can end up hitting through them. But it looks like it's not really going to matter this time, and it's already dead. And you basically just rinse and repeat that cycle until you kill out every single battle. and that should end up working out pretty decently. Actually, you know what? I might as well go show it now. It'd make a lot more sense if I start showing these like during natural thing. Let me go bring out the raid team, the other raid team, the cheaper raid team. That's not the cheaper raid team. Where's the cheaper raid team? There's the cheaper raid team. Let me go bring this out. So, cheaper raid team. This also uses the new tome that we just got from the event as well. If I'll go into raids right over here, go over to fight, edit teams, paste team, and should be good to go. So, of course, we got Medusa Tome. This is in the shop right now for raids for 250 gems, which you'd most likely do if you're going through the event. Highly advise getting it this way rather than getting it through SoulForge. It's not really too good of a weapon. It's basically the same premise of a lot of weapons that we've been getting recently, where it boosts based on a certain type, creates 2 colors, in this case blue and red, and this does damage based on that boost ratio as well. So this does it specifically for Miss of Scales. Miss of Scales does have a pretty good synergy within itself. The only problem that with it is overall it's not that strong, Miss of Scales in general. Might have good synergy, but it's just not that good overall. It also has a charm mechanic. Charm mechanic is an interesting one in that it can upscale, though it upscales very selectively given how it targets the enemies. So you can kind of use this to upscale, which is one of the reasons why I ended up using it within this team. But it's definitely not the best of options if you happen to have other things that you can end up using. And more often than not, you might want to just go down the Mang route. But figured I'd show it this way, as Charm doesn't generally get that much use. So we'll go for this. Same kind of premise, except we're not really going to be able to go the Mang. We'll be able to use this for our damage and mana accumulation. We're, of course, also going to be using the Poison Master for a lot of mana generation. One of the other specific reasons for the Poison Master is he is good at poisoning. He does do 2 poisons every single time he casts, and this, of course, still is applicable to his boost ratio. Obviously, we don't have as many ways to poison, so that will help give us a option to be able to go and poison. And pretty much just rinse and repeat until we end up getting the kill. This probably won't be able to go to the really high levels, but it's super cheap in that nothing in this entire team is above epic rarity, and the one that is epic rarity is the one that you're going to be getting from the event anyway, so it's basically ultra rare and below, essentially, since you're going to be getting the tome and the epic pretty much automatically if you buy 250 gems into the event for both. But that's that. Other than that, we have ourselves a bunch of event stuff this week. This Tuesday, we're going to be having the Amanithrax, which is the place where Gob Truffle is from, so you could pretty much just run a standard Gob Truffle team there. Wednesday, as I mentioned, we are getting the 5-year anniversary pet. This Thursday, we have a class event for Assassin. Assassin is an interesting hero class. It has a 10% instant kill on Skull every single time it takes a Skull. Also has a 7% chance to instant kill anytime your team does any kill. So there's 2 different ways of instant killing. We also have a 30% dodge to Skulls, so it's a pretty good Skull user, particularly with Skull spam. Not particularly Doom Skull spam, but Skull spam in particular. In that whenever you use like a Keeper of Souls or a really controlled option or a double like converter, ends up working really, really well with Assassin, since you'll have more chances to be able to proc all the instant kills. It's an extremely luck-based hero class. When it works good, it works insanely good. The only real big problem is you don't always have it working well, and you can get extremely knocked down by bad RNG. So it tends to not be used too often, though it is one of the best skull-using hero classes in the game. The only problem is it's even more luck-based, and you generally go for options that are less luck-based, especially in the current state of the game. Anyways, and Friday we're going to be having Bounty Hunter. This is going to, of course, be bringing in another Bounty Hunter troop. Nothing really too special, though it does have Stun and Curse. And this combination is a little bit relevant in that you can get rid of Perviouses, so you can go and silence them with something like a Parrot. You could also end up getting rid of, probably the most noteworthy thing, is you can get rid of the Valraven's immune to silence as well, and then go silence it and go from there. So yeah, you'll be able to have an impervious counter and that silence counter in one single troop starting this Bounty Hunter. I don't think it's going to be used into the future, but it might have a little bit of potential. But overall, it's going to just mostly be a utility troop for Bounty Hunter, but it's mandatory to, of course, use it for the upcoming Bounty Hunter. As far as SoulForge, I already said what the most relevant thing in here is, and that is Scorpius. Scorpius is available right now. This, I'm not really sure if I should say to go craft. In the current state of the game, Scorpius is technically one of the best troops in the game. And that is mainly because it is insanely good at running Explore. Pretty sure most of you have seen the team already or other similar variants to it. But the general premise is you run a bunch of mana generators, you put Scorpius into a team, you put Uriali into a team, which is also available in event keys right now. If you don't own Uriali, you just use Web Spinner. And you basically just spam your mana. go and get a double cast. It looks like we might not get our extra turn here. We do need to get one extra turn, and good, we got our extra turn there. That, of course, triggers Yali's trait, which does the 4 times poison. And then we simply just go cycle over our mana again, kill it again, and we pretty much just get a 30-second battle. And at this current moment in time, to my understanding, from what I have tested, that is the quickest possible win you can do. It's upwards of about 350,000 gold per hour just from constantly farming Urskea. If you're wondering why I'm going to Urskea, it is currently the only kingdom in the entire game that has 0 immune to poisons. Do keep in mind that Urskea is getting a faction in 2 months from now, so it might be getting some troops that have immune to poison and or impervious, so this might not be viable for too much longer. However, in the current state of the game, Scorpius plus Yali is essentially the strongest Explorer combo from a speed perspective, especially if you're just doing it more so for the gold than the tokens, though you do get a decent combination of both as you're progressing through. But a really, really, really good Explore option in the current state of the game. Keep in mind, if a better Explore option ever comes into the game, both Scorpius and Yali will pretty much be useless, as they are very, very, very bad against anything that has any amount of immunities. But in the context of the current state of the game, Scorpius plus Yali is super strong, so it is something to consider if you don't mind investing into it. It's definitely not a first option. I'd consider this more towards like your 10th mythic or so. There's definitely plenty of other ones that you'd want to get before this, but it's something to consider as it's pretty meta right now. And while it might not be meta for long and it might be completely useless in a few months, at least in the current state of the game, it is definitely worth considering. And other than that, nothing else is worth crafting within the Soulforge right now. Vash'Dogon is occasionally used for his final trait, but due to how weirdly his first trait works, because they never really fixed it, it's I wouldn't really bother with it personally. Other than that, as far as weapons are concerned, we do have ourselves pretty much just the 2 boost ratio weapons. We have ourselves the Kobra thing, which is boosted based on Nagas, and the other thing that's from the same general premise, which is boosted based on Mr. Scales. And of course, nearly all of Mr. Scales is Nagas to begin with. But as far as the which one to go for, obviously this one you can just get through the event, and I would advise just getting that through 250 gems through the event. And this one's pretty much just a useless weapon that you're never going to need, but if you want it for completionist purposes, you can. But neither of them are really worth having. And if you were to go for one, I'd rather go down, I would say go down the 250 gem route to go get this and just save your diamonds for a later week and just ignore this one. And that's pretty much the rundown on the weapons. Other than that, let's go and just show a few of the other teams that we didn't already catch up on. So, of course, there are a few other things that we're having throughout the week. The Explorer thing I already went and showed. This is Mountain Crusher, Scorpius, Leprechaun, and Yali. This is extremely, well, I was about to say extremely easy to build. But this is, well, I don't know. It's, Mountain Crusher is obviously just something you automatically have. Leprechaun is something you likely automatically already have. The only 2 hard parts is Scorpius and Yali. However, both of these options are available this week. Scorpius is 4,000 diamonds in Soulforge all this week, and Yali's and event keys all this week at a 0.11% chance per event key that you open. So this team is accessible to obtain this week, is what I should say. It's not easy to build. That's definitely not the case. But all the things you need to try to be able to build this team are available this week. So it's something to consider attempting for if you want to try for very quick Explore wins. Other than that, faction event. Of course, this is for Amanithrax tomorrow. You can just run simple Truffle team. Forest Troll, Double King, Gob Truffle with a Doom's Glaive. You can end up running a Cleanse option or something else here if you don't end up having the Doom's Glaive. Basic premise is you do want to use Warden. There's 2 reasons why you want to use Warden. Dispel and Greenstorm. Greenstorm is to make your Forest Troll and King Gob Truffles get their mana quicker, as well as just infinitely loop even stronger, or just be able to get the startup going. And the Dispel is used because since you're using Gob Truffles as your main damage source, especially if you're missing the Doom weapon, you're going to have trouble against things that have Submerge, because they will be able to dodge your Gob Truffle. And if you have Dispel, you'll simply be able to go and remove those Submerges every single time you extra turn, which you're pretty much doing every single time due to the gem spawn off of the Gob Truffles and the gem spawn off of the Forest Troll. So you're never really going to need to worry about any kind of positive stats effects that the enemy might have. So ends up working out pretty well for that. And you can run it through literally the entire faction, not even just the early ones, but all the way from 20 to 500 can be ran in Amanithrax using that team. Other than that, as far as the class event, there are a couple different ways you can go about doing this, but the easiest way is likely just doing Mang into Marilift spam, or using a different AoE kind of weapon like Dawnbringer or something else initially, and then switching over to Mang. For your later ones, just with a bunch of Marilifts. This is mostly because Marilift is an extremely good mana generator, while also having a Fire Link. Well, I shouldn't say extremely good, but in the context of this event, it is extremely good relative to other options that are available. But ends up having a Red Link, which can, of course, feed into itself. If you have 3 of them, you can even one-turner, or two-turner, I mean, having a consistent 6 mana take, or 9 if you end up taking a Surge. So ends up helping her out quite a bit. Other than that, we have ourselves a Kobra here. This is what I was just mentioning earlier, in that you can use it as a summon option. This will slow you down. However, if you're trying for some kind of place on the leaderboard where 1 or 2 points might make a difference, you're generally going to want to use a summoner. And if you were to go use a summoner, you're pretty much just going to want to go down the Kobra route, unless you own a Reali. But this is the much cheaper option, obviously, if you don't own an Reali. So you'll be able to just have your summon, and keep in mind for class events that if a troop dies, and then you summon it back, you do not lose that point, which is kind of weird, but it is the way it is. So you lose 1 point per troop that dies. However, it only tracks the troops that died at the end of battle. So if you have a full team by the end of battle, it counts as 0 troops dead. So you generally want to have a summoner for class events if you're trying for absolute perfect score. And this is one way of doing it. Other than that, as far as raids, we already went over these, but just to go over again. Mang, the new epic, Tapon and Reali. Basic premise here is Tapon into our first 2 items. The Mang then goes and hits boss. You then follow up with the Slayer, and then you just kill it. You just can keep repeating that. And Reali here is mostly for your backup summon and just for some poke damage. It also gives you poison boost ratio, so you end up getting more explosions off of your Slayer, since he'll be able to get 2 per poisoned enemy. And while Zugov can't be poisoned, hopefully the other 3 will, which will give him a 6 explosion for his several casts that he ends up doing. And other than that, of course, we have the low option, which is mainly just using Medusa's Tome for its full boost ratio with a full team of Mist of Scales, which you have to use anyways for the event to begin with. We're doing this with Titan just so we can tank with Barrier, of course. You can use more offensive options if you want, though do keep in mind, Assassin will not instant kill the Zugov. It does have immune to instant kill, so you can't just use Assassin against it if you're thinking of doing that. That would be amazing if that worked. Unfortunately, that does not. They thought ahead. But other than that, Poison Master, of course, just explodes a bunch. Lamia is just for the charm to upscale a little bit. Also gets all of its mana back if it can end up landing a kill. And due to the Poison Master's poisoned, you'll have some extra explosions for the Epic Troop, which will just be able to go and kill out the boss with. And that's pretty much all the teams that you'll end up needing for this week. If you still have any other questions, feel free to leave it in the comment section below. We will be streaming for the first time on Mixer later today as well, at our normal time of 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We'll still be streaming here on YouTube as well, but I'm going to start testing Mixer, see how it goes, and just go from there. Other than that, if you guys still have any other questions, feel free to leave it in the comment section below, and I will catch all of you guys later. Goodbye, everyone, and have a wonderful week!